This video is not for whales, but it might very well be for dolphins, because we've got 4 characters coming in 1.5, guys. We got Astra, we got Ellen, we got Evelyn, we got Qingyi. So if you're struggling with where to spend those polychromes, then yeah, you're in the right place. We're going to talk through the characters, we're going to talk about their potential value and how we see them stacking up heading into the future of Zenless Zone Zero. So we'll talk about their potential long-term value as well for the newer characters and for the older characters if you're interested in picking them up. So let's start things off with Astra then. So Astra is an ether support agent. She's our 3rd ether agent in the game so far after Nicole and Ji-Yuan. Why are we power creeping roles that we don't have barely any ether support? Anyway, it's fine, whatever. She's probably going to be absolutely goated. Honestly, she buffs attack for the team through her EX special where she enters a dancing state, and she also buffs the attack through her core passive as well. Her ultimate heals and puts her into a dancing state and therefore providing that attack buff, and it also causes the next 2 switches to be quick assists. So that's going to enable her to really make the most of the drive disc set, the Astral Voice, and it depends on her kit scaling when that actually does get confirmed, but I have a funny feeling that she could be the best character in the game right now when she actually comes out from a purely meta perspective, because if her attack buff is a similar size or potentially bigger than Caesar's, plus the fact that she heals your team, that means that she's going to be incredibly strong and basically best in slot on pretty much every team. Anomaly teams, attack teams, so I can't see her not being pretty strong, and I also would suggest that her long-term value is going to be extremely high. If she's going to be best in slot on pretty much every team right now, then I would imagine into the future, yeah, I'm sure we'll get more supports that are more dedicated to specific things, but I think her universality across, buffing attack, which means that attack characters are going to benefit and anomaly characters will benefit. She's going to be incredibly good, and that means you can use her on your weakest team, or you could use her on your strongest team to make them even stronger, clear even faster on Deadly Assault, shield defense, stuff like that. Or yeah, you can put them on like the weakest team that you currently have to make sure that those guys can still clear effectively. So yeah, she's going to be great, and we'll talk about her potential value a little bit more in comparison to everyone else in a moment. But let's also talk about Ellen. So Ellen's also running in the first half with Astra. Ellen is an ice DPS, and Miyabi is here now. So sorry, Ellen. But Ellen does still have a place in the meta. I'm just kidding, of course, because Miyabi isn't an attack character, but Ellen is. So there are certain things and team archetypes that Ellen will benefit more from that Miyabi wouldn't necessarily as an anomaly character. And it's also a good time to potentially consider Mindscapes or Wenjins for Ellen. If you love Ellen, it'll make her more usable if she's like your favorite character in the game. In addition to this, because of Ellen's rerun and the fact that Miyabi was only very recently released, I think that we're probably going to see ice weakness in the next few cycles of shield defense and deadly assault. I think we're going to continue to see more ice weaknesses, which means that if, for example, you skipped Miyabi because she just didn't appeal to you because you're an Ellen enjoyer, this might be a good opportunity to maybe upgrade your Ellen a little bit, maybe pick up that Wenjin to make sure that she's still going to be usable in the future. Now, she is still good and usable now. If you like her, you will likely benefit from the next patch or two with that continued ice weakness, but I would be concerned about her potential future value dropping off a little bit as the content potentially starts to get harder when we start heading in towards, year 2 of the game, and potentially the power creeps up a little bit more. But for right now, I think you'll be fine with Ellen for the foreseeable future, especially if you did skip Miyabi. And as I mentioned, potential Mindscapes or Wenjin, her M1 is a really good upgrade for her in terms of her clunkiness, kind of makes her a lot smoother to play, and her M2 is also like a really nice upgrade as well. So yeah, I know this content is aimed at free-to-play and low-spend players, but even if you are free to play on low spend, if you skip Miyabi, you had a whole patch to save. And if you're an Ellen enjoyer, then you might want to know, yeah, she'll be good for a while, especially if you decide to hyper invest into her now that she's getting a rerun. we'll move on to Evelyn in just a moment, but just quickly before we do that, this is your reminder that you probably aren't subscribed. Liking and subscribing really helps to support creators like me on YouTube. You can also drop me a follow over on Twitch if you're interested in streams, and you can join the Discord if you're interested in hanging out with some cool chill peeps and asking for questions and help and support with Zenless Zone Zero. Thank you so much for all the support so far. I really appreciate it, and back to the video at hand. Okay, moving on, let's talk about Evelyn. So Evelyn is a fire attack unit. She binds enemies, seemingly, and then buffs her own crit rate after basic attacking. Pretty selfish abilities, which is quite normal for attack agents. Through play, Evelyn can build up points of burning tether, and then she can manually cause a chain attack, meaning that she doesn't need other agents in order to get her chain attack off. Her EX special can bind with multiple enemies and cause additional damage, and when she ults, she takes off her jacket, which she then keeps one burning tether point for the rest of the encounter, meaning that it's easier as you move forward into that encounter to trigger her extra chain attack when you want to. But it doesn't stack from using multiple ultimates, so you can't, just always be able to do it if you did 3 ultimates in an encounter, because you only need 3 burning tether points. In terms of her value, I would suggest that it's probably higher than Ellen, but it's not Astra level. The reason I'd say higher than Ellen is now we're in 1.5, we'll expect her multipliers to be a little bit better than Ellen's, particularly for her chain attack, because she can trigger that herself, and then that seems like it's a really important part of her kit, and therefore, I'd expect the scaling and multipliers on that to be a little bit higher so that she can do it more frequently, and, that's kind of what her kit is built around. And over the course of like several rotations and stuff, I'd expect her damage output to be a little bit higher than Ellen's, just because we're comparing a 1.5 unit to a 1.0 unit. So if you joined the game in 1.4 and you're looking for an attack agent and you're not sure whether or not you want to get Ellen or Evelyn, I'd honestly say just pick who you'd prefer based on the meta. Then I'd say pick Evelyn. But as always, wait for confirmed details before you actually make your decision. Then we have Qingyi. So Qingyi is an electric stun unit and probably the most universal stun unit that we've had so far, because she buffs the stun window multiplier. So basically all attack agents can benefit from having Qingyi on their team over having like an A rank stunner, something like Ambi. Except for the fact though that lighter is better for Ellen and Evelyn, because he buffs ice and fire damage, so he'd be better for both Ellen and Evelyn. And so that kind of leaves Qingyi in a bit of an awkward position. So Qingyi could be a really big upgrade for the 2 fire and ice attack agents in this patch if you're still rocking Ambi, but she's not the best stunner for all attack agents. Now, to be clear, she's definitely the best stunner in a Juyuan team. If you want to pick her up for that, then that makes sense. But she's probably not a wise pickup if you're planning to use her temporarily until you can eventually get lighter on a rerun. If it's that point, then you should probably just save. To be honest though, we probably don't know enough to say with any certain detail that Evelyn is definitely going to be better with lighter. So as always, wait for the actual guides and what have you, but for now, it looks like the guesswork would be that light is probably going to be better than Qingyi, but Qingyi is still a universal and really good stun agent if you're planning to use her with Juyuan, or potentially just temporarily with Evelyn and then moving her into a Juyuan team when Juyuan reruns, then it does make sense to pick Qingyi up here too. And why include Qingyi here and not Juyuan? Well, she's an increase over Ambi, and I imagine there are a lot of newer players joining in 1.4 due to Miyabi's banner, and when they get a limited attack agent like Ellen or Evelyn and they're looking for an upgrade, then, Qingyi is an appealing option. But as I mentioned, if you plan to ultimately bench Qingyi, she's not going to be a great pickup. She is universal though. She can be a useful addition to most attacker teams, especially if you don't have that many agents yet, but I think the value is on the lower side at the moment, unless she is going to go into your Juyuan team, and then that's fair enough because she's the best stunner for that position. Qingyi here is not running with the best attackers for her, and I think that that's on purpose. I think it's to kind of bait people into getting Qingyi and then potentially upgrading into lighter later, and then Qingyi just gets benched. So I would save the polychrome if you are an Evelyn enjoyer or an Ellen enjoyer, and put them aside and make sure that you can get lighter when he eventually reruns in 4 or 5 patches time at a guess. Okay, so overall, I'd say the deeper you are into the game, the more sense it makes to prioritize the more supportive characters. The earlier you are in your Zenless Zone Zero journey, the more it makes sense to go for more attack-based characters, so you can, you know, basically just do more damage without needing to put that much investment in. But for long-term account usability, supports are still incredibly useful, and that's why I would say that Astra is probably the best pickup out of the 4 here. For being able to clear the content now, potentially you might want to consider picking up Evelyn, especially if you already have Miyabi. You kind of already have the ice element covered, so I would also, you know, probably steer away from Ellen a little bit. So in terms of like the priority for most players, I would say Astra is at the top, Evelyn is number 2, Qingyi number 3, and lastly, I would put Ellen at number 4. That doesn't mean Ellen's bad. Ultimately, the smartest play is to go for whatever you want. Ellen's still a great character, and obviously now her rerun kind of means that players who may have hyper-invested into building her from like a drive disc perspective can now actually just put some polychromes in and grab a Wenjin, grab a Mindscape, because they really enjoy playing Ellen. Ultimately, is that the wisest investment of polychrome? No, not really. But, you know, you do you, man. All good. As for what I'm going to do, my head and heart say Astra, but other parts of me are saying Evelyn. Anyway, as always, remember to like and subscribe for better than average luck on all your pulls. Pull responsibly, stay weird. Bye, 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 bye.